You know, I got a question too. I don't know how many people remember or followed the Comey testimony on President Trump and Russian investigation on July 8, 2017, but one question that has just irked me all of this time for all of this, and mainstream media never said a peep about it. Nobody else has said anything about it. Why did Mueller, after he was fired, meet with Special Counsel Mueller about a week before his testimony? Now, he was no longer an employee of the federal government. In fact, he was a private citizen by then. And if he needed attorney advice, why didn't he go seek an attorney? Why did he go seek special Mueller's counsel before his testimony? This alone taints the case. Okay, this is fruit of the poison tree. And anything that they gathered up in their intelligence during the Trump campaign and transition at Trump Tower is also fruit of a poison tree. This is why you saw in the newspaper this morning that Department of Justice now claims they have no records of any wiretapping at Trump Tower. This also begs to answer the question, then how did they know Flynn had spoken to anyone if there were no wiretaps in Trump Towers? Okay, this is stuff the media is not going to bring up. This is stuff that Mueller's not going to bring up. But I hope, like hell, Trump's legal team catches on to this part. Two things. Mueller and Comey met prior to his testimony with the Senate. And secondly, how did they ever get a transcript of Flynn talking to the Russian ambassador if there was no wiretapping? Two big, huge problems for Mueller and Comey and the corrupt state. So, anyway, let's go on and listen to some more.
Prosecute or recommend prosecution for her. So thanks for watching. I'm going to show you the video now.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Ratcliffe, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director, did you make the decision not to recommend criminal charges relating to classified information before or after Hillary Clinton was interviewed by the FBI on July the 2nd?
After.
Okay, then I'm going to need your help in trying to understand how that's possible. I think there's a lot of prosecutors or former prosecutors that are shaking our heads in how that could be the case. Because if there was ever any real possibility that Hillary Clinton might be charged for something that she admitted to on July the 2nd, why would two of the central witnesses in a potential prosecution against her be allowed to sit in the same room to hear the testimony? Now, I've heard your earlier answers today. You said that, well, it was because the interview was voluntary and they were her lawyers. But I think you're skirting the real issue there, Director. First of all, the fact that it was voluntary, it didn't have to be, right? You could have been paneled an investigative grand jury. She could have been subpoenaed. And I know you've said that you can't comment on that. I don't really care about the decision about whether or not there should have been a grand jury here. But since you didn't have one, it goes to the issue at hand about whether or not this interview should have ever taken place. With due respect to the answers that you've given, the FBI and the Department of Justice absolutely control whether or not an interview is going to take place with other witnesses in the room, because the simple truth is that under the circumstances as you've described, those interviews never take place. If there was ever any possibility that something Hillary Clinton might have said on July 2nd could have possibly resulted in criminal charges that might possibly resulted in a trial against her relating to this classified information, well then, to use your words, Director, I don't think that there's any reasonable prosecutor out there who would have allowed two immunized witnesses central to the prosecution to proving the case against her to sit in the room with the interview, the FBI interview of the subject of that investigation. And if I heard you earlier today, in your long career, I heard you say that you've never had that circumstance. Did I hear you correctly?
That's correct. But
Okay, and I never have either, and I've never met a prosecutor that's ever had that. So, to me, the only way that an interview takes place with the two central witnesses and the subject of the investigation is if the decision has already been made that all three people in